I give my children garri to drink every morning. Sometimes it is only water and garri. I tell them it is breakfast. But you know it is not. I work all day, under the sun. I bend my back. I beg people to allow me work. And when evening comes, some tell me to come back later. Some give me 2 cups of garri. Just 2 cups, God. I miss my husband. If he was alive, I would not be this tired. I would not beg like this. I would not cry alone at night. I am tired, God. Tired of pretending I am strong. Tired of lying to my children. Don't let my suffering destroy their faith.
Life after the grave. They used to call her by her real name when her husband was alive. People greeted her with respect. Some even joked with her. But the day malaria took her husband, everything changed. Now everyone called her Mama Chidera, not because they loved her, but because in the village, a widow loses her name and keeps only her child. Every morning, Mama Chidera woke up before the sun, not to plan her day, but to prepare her heart for hunger. She would lie on the mat, staring at the roof, listening to her children breathe, and thinking the same thought every day. If my husband was still alive, this would not be my life. She missed his footsteps. She missed his cough. She even missed his complaints. Death did not just take a man, it took peace. The cupboard and the lie. When she finally stood up, her body already felt tired. She walked to the kitchen corner. The cupboard stood there quietly, like it had something to say. She opened it. Nothing, no garri bowl, no rice cup, not even salt. She closed it quickly because pain should not be stared at for too long. That was when Chidera spoke. "Mama, I'm hungry." That sentence pierced her heart every morning. She smiled anyway. "Go and wash your face first." She bent down, reached under the bed, and brought out a small nylon of garri. She poured water into 3 cups, added garri, no sugar, no milk, no groundnut, just survival. "Drink small," she said gently. "This one is breakfast." Somto smiled and drank happily. Mama Chidera turned her face away. Because mothers are not allowed to cry in front of food. After the children finished, Mama Chidera rinsed the cups. She did not drink. She never did. She told them she had eaten outside. Outside where? Hunger does not ask questions. Children believe quickly. As soon as they left for school, her stomach began to twist painfully. She tied her wrapper tighter, wore her worn slippers. Today again, she would go begging for work. Not money, work. Farms that steal dignity. She walked from compound to compound, her slippers scraping the dusty road, her shadow stretching longer than her hope. "Please," she said, bowing slightly, her voice careful, as if loud words cost money. "I can weed, I can harvest, anything." Some people pretended not to hear her. Some suddenly became busy. Some said, "Come tomorrow." Tomorrow. That word had become her enemy. Tomorrow had eaten many of her yesterdays. At one farm they allowed her. Not with kindness, with indifference. She bent her back under the burning sun. The soil was hot, the weeds were stubborn. Her hands trembled as she pulled and pulled. Sweat soaked her blouse. Her stomach screamed like a child locked inside her. She rested for a second, then remembered she was not allowed to rest. Poor people must work like machines to deserve mercy. When evening finally came, the sky turned orange and tired. She wiped sweat from her face with the edge of her wrapper. "Please, my pay," she said softly, carefully, as though payment was a favor, not a right. The man did not look at her. "Come later," he said. "I will give you." Later again. Later had also betrayed her many times. She nodded, she always nodded, and walked away quietly because arguments are expensive. At another farm, she worked again, from morning till the sun leaned west. Her knees hurt, her head spun, her hunger had passed pain and entered silence. When she finished, they did not count her hours. They did not count her sweat. They brought out 2 cups of garri. That was her payment. She collected it with both hands, not because she was grateful, but because hunger had already knelt inside her. She did not argue, she did not cry. She thanked them, because hunger does not just empty the stomach, it empties the voice, it bends the back, and it kills dignity first. She walked home slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. The small nylon of garri in her hand felt heavier than a full bag of rice, because hope weighs more than food. The sky had already darkened by the time she reached the room. When she pushed the door open, the children were asleep, their small bodies curled together on the mat, breathing softly, unaware of how close hunger had come today. She stood there for a while, watching them sleep, counting their breaths like someone counting blessings she feared losing. Then she sat on the floor, slowly, carefully, as though even the ground could break her. She opened the nylon. The garri poured out a little, dry, pale, silent. She stared at it for a long time, as if it might explain itself, as if it might multiply if she looked hard enough. Then she cried, not loudly, not the kind of cry that calls neighbors, not the kind of cry that expects comfort. She cried the way widows cry, silently, bitterly, with tears that fall inside the chest before they touch the face. I wish you were still alive, she whispered. Her voice was almost air. If you were here, I would not beg, I would not bow, I would not be cheated of my sweat. She pressed her wrapper against her mouth, holding the sound back, because mothers learn early that children must not hear breaking. Her shoulders shook, her eyes burned, her heart spoke words her mouth could not afford to say. The children slept on. The room stayed quiet. The night did not interrupt, but heaven was listening closely, closer than hunger, closer than tears. She lifted her face slowly, not with strength, but with the little courage left inside her. God. Her voice cracked immediately. She swallowed hard, as if her throat was full of stones. I give my children garri to drink every morning, she said. Sometimes it is only water and garri. Her hands trembled. I tell them it is breakfast, but you know it is not. Tears dropped on the bare floor. I work all day, she continued, under the sun. I bend my back. I beg people to allow me work. Her breathing became uneven. And when evening comes, some tell me to come back later. Some give me 2 cups of garri. Just 2 cups, God. She paused. Her chest heaved. I miss my husband, she whispered. If he was alive, I would not be this tired. I would not beg like this. I would not cry alone at night. Her shoulders shook violently now. I am tired, God. Tired of pretending I am strong. Tired of lying to my children. Tired of believing and still being hungry. She pressed her wrapper to her mouth. If help will not come, she said between sobs, please don't let my children hate you. Don't let them think you forgot us. Don't let my suffering destroy their faith. Her voice faded. There was nothing left to say. She stayed there, kneeling on the floor, with tears soaking the ground. She did not say Amen. She could not. The prayer did not end in words. It ended in tears. When God answers without warning, morning came again. Soft, ordinary, like every other morning. The sun rose without apology. The room was the same. The cupboard was still empty. Her body was still tired. Mama Chidera sat up slowly. She had slept little. Tears dry on her face. Pain still fresh in her chest. Nothing had changed. So she prepared to lie again. Prepared to tell her children stories of strength she did not feel. Prepared to face another day with borrowed courage. Then, a knock, not loud, not demanding, just soft, gentle, almost unsure. She froze. Who knocks this early? Hope was dangerous. She had learned not to open it easily. The knock came again. She stood up carefully and walked to the door. When she opened it, a woman stood there, neatly dressed, calm eyes, a quiet kindness in her face. "My name is Auntie Esther," the woman said. Mama Chidera nodded slowly. "I don't know you," she replied honestly. "I know," Auntie Esther said softly, "but God knows you." Those words entered her chest before her mind could stop them. Auntie Esther bent down and brought out bags. Not one, not two. Rice, beans, oil, garri, sugar, food that filled the doorway, food that filled the air, food that filled years of emptiness. Mama Chidera could not move. Her hands shook, her knees weakened. Then Auntie Esther said something that reached places hunger had not touched. "God said you cry for your dead husband at night." Mama Chidera's breath caught. "He said you feed your children garri." Her eyes widened. "He said some people pay you with 2 cups after full-day work." The room tilted. The floor rushed toward her. Mama Chidera fell to the ground, not because she was weak, but because her strength had finally been released. She cried loudly now, not the quiet crying of widows, but the loud crying of someone who has been seen, because God had told her whole story, not part of it, not the polite part, the hunger, the shame, the nights, the tears pressed into wrappers, the lies told to children, the bending, the begging, all of it. And for the first time in a long while, hope knocked without warning. The cupboard and the promise that day, the cupboard changed, not because Mama Chidera became rich, not because life suddenly became easy, but because God proved He had been watching all along. The cupboard still looked old, the wood was still weak, but inside it now lived something new. Hope. Before leaving, Auntie Esther stood at the doorway and said gently, "My farm needs someone faithful. I don't need strength alone. I need honesty. I will pay weekly." Mama Chidera nodded slowly. Her heart was full. Words were not enough. This time she smiled without pretending. After Auntie Esther left, Mama Chidera tied her wrapper properly and entered the kitchen corner. She opened the cupboard again. Rice, beans, oil, salt, things she had not touched in a long time. She brought out a pot, washed it carefully, poured water, added rice, beans, oil. She placed the pot on fire. The sound of boiling water filled the room, a sound her house had forgotten. That was when the children woke up. Chidera rubbed his eyes. Somto sat up suddenly. "Mama," Chidera said, confused, "what is that smell?" Mama Chidera turned and smiled, a real smile, a soft one. "Food," she said. The children rushed to the kitchen corner. They stared at the pot, fire under it, steam rising. Somto clapped her hands. "Mama cooked," she shouted. Chidera's eyes widened. "Not garri?" Mama Chidera shook her head. "Not garri." She served them proper food, warm, full, real. They ate slowly at first, as if afraid it would disappear, then faster, laughing, smiling, asking for more. Mama Chidera watched them eat. She did not rush. She did not turn her face away. She ate too. For the first time in a long while, breakfast was not survival. It was joy. And the cupboard, though still small, stood quietly in the corner, keeping a promise God had already begun to fulfill. Mama Chidera did not sleep well that night, not because of hunger, but because hope had returned, and hope can be frightening when you have lost it before. Before the sun rose, she was already awake. She washed her face carefully, tied her wrapper neatly, combed her hair with her fingers. For the first time in a long while, she was not going out to beg for work. She was going to work because she had been invited. When she reached Auntie Esther's farm, the land looked wide and alive, green leaves, moist soil, quiet strength. Auntie Esther greeted her warmly. "Take your time," she said. "You are not a slave here." Those words almost made Mama Chidera cry.
Work with dignity. The work was hard. Weeding. Carrying baskets. Clearing dry stems. But it was different. No shouting. No mocking. No promises of later. When the sun climbed high, Auntie Esther brought food. Real food. Mama Chidera stared at it for a moment, as if it might disappear. Eat, Auntie Esther said gently. You need strength. She ate slowly. Not greedily. With gratitude. For the first time in many months, food did not feel like an enemy. At the end of the day, Auntie Esther paid her. Cash. Not garri. Not lies. Mama Chidera held the money tightly. Her hands trembled. On her way home, she kept looking at it, as if it might turn to dust. But it didn't. The change did not come suddenly. It did not arrive with noise. There was no dramatic announcement from heaven. No miracle pot that never emptied. No bag of rice that refused to finish. Life did not turn into a testimony overnight. Instead, it came slowly. So slowly that Mama Chidera almost missed it at first. For many years, the cupboard had mocked her. Not with words. But with emptiness. With silence. With the cruel way it stood open, showing nothing but air and dust. She used to avoid opening it during the day. She waited until night. When the children were asleep, when no one would see her kneel before it, searching again, hoping again, only to be disappointed again. But now, something had changed. The cupboard still looked old. The wood still creaked when opened. One hinge was still loose. But it no longer mocked her. There was garri inside. Not plenty but present. And this time, there was sugar beside it. The first morning she added sugar to the garri, she paused. Her hand trembled slightly. She looked at the small bowl, then at the children. Drink, she said quietly. Somto tasted it and frowned in confusion. Then her face brightened. Mama, it's sweet. Mama Chidera turned away quickly. She did not want them to see her eyes. It was just sugar. But it felt like mercy. Some days later, she added groundnut. A small handful. Nothing special. But Chidera noticed. Mama, today own different, he said, chewing slowly. Mama Chidera smiled. Not the tired smile she used to wear like a mask. But a real one. Small. Gentle. Rice did not come every day. Sometimes, it came once in 2 weeks. Sometimes, once in a month. But it came. Beans followed. Not always together. Not always enough to store. But enough for one meal. Enough to remind her that hunger was no longer the ruler of her house. She still worked hard. Very hard. She went to the farm early in the morning. Returned tired in the evening. Her back still ached. Her hands were still rough. But something was different now. She no longer worked with shame. Before, when people paid her with 2 cups of garri, she bowed her head and said thank you, swallowing tears. Now, when she was paid fairly, she lifted her face and said thank you with dignity. Sometimes, when she was paid weekly as promised, she sat on her mat at night and just stared at the money. Not because it was much. But because it was honest. The children noticed the changes before she did. Chidera stopped asking, when will we eat? That question used to break her heart. Now, he asked different things. Mama, can I help you cook? Mama, tomorrow what will we eat? Hope had entered his voice quietly. Nkairu, who used to sweep in silence, began to hum. Soft songs. Songs without words. Songs that came from nowhere. Mama Chidera noticed one evening as she sat outside peeling beans. She stopped and listened. Nkairu was humming. Not loudly. Not happily like a child at play. But peacefully. as if her heart had found rest. Somto began to sleep without crying. Before, she often woke up at night, restless, murmuring in her sleep. Now, she slept deeply. Mama Chidera began to sleep too. Not long sleep, but peaceful sleep. The kind of sleep where you do not wake up afraid of morning. There were still hard days. Days when the pot was almost empty. Days when the money finished too quickly. Days when she worried again. But fear no longer stayed. It came. Then it left. Peace had returned quietly. Like someone who did not want to disturb them. Mama Chidera noticed herself laughing one afternoon. A short laugh. Surprised by her own voice. She paused. When last did I laugh? She wondered. She began to pray differently. Before, her prayers were full of tears and begging. Now, they were simple. Thank you for today. Thank you for strength. Thank you for food. Sometimes, she stood in front of the cupboard and just looked inside. Not counting what was there. But remembering what used to be there. Nothing. The cupboard had become a reminder. Not of poverty. But of progress. Small progress. Slow progress. But real. One evening, Somto said something that made Mama Chidera stop. Mama, she said, licking her fingers after eating beans, food sweet today every day. Mama Chidera laughed softly. It was not true. Not every day. But it felt true. That night, Mama Chidera knelt again. Not crying this time. God, she said quietly, you did not rush. But you did not forget. She looked at her children sleeping peacefully on the mat. For the first time in a long while, she was not afraid of tomorrow. The change was small. But the meaning was big. Because when hunger loses its voice, faith begins to speak again. And in that small house, with an old cupboard and simple meals, hope had finally found a place to stay.